Hello everyone, Linux Dude here, and today I'm going to be showing you one method to get a quote-unquote free Path9 server set up and running from your own home. Now obviously there's a couple caveats to anything free, but if you meet these requirements you can actually get started at a much lower cost than it would be if you went with a hosting provider, and also without the added cost of paying for their hosting services. So the first requirement is that you have an old or extra PC that you don't need. And the you don't need part is actually very important, because what we're actually going to be doing is wiping everything on this PC and installing a new operating system on it for our server software. So you need to make sure that this is not your main PC that you're actually playing on, that this is a separate device that you don't need. Now you don't need a top-of-the-line computer with a 3090 in it and a Ryzen Threadripper CPU. In fact, you don't even need a graphics card to do this. So this is perfect for that old gateway that's been collecting dust in the garage since 2006, or that computer that your uncle has been trying to offload on you for a while. Or, failing that, even finding something cheap on Facebook Marketplace or something like that. And, it doesn't need to be a very good computer. As long as it turns on, that's pretty much good enough. Obviously, the better the hardware, the bigger the server is going to be. But to get started with you and a few friends, having your own kind of private server, this is a really great and cost-effective way of actually getting started with that. And so for our purposes, we're actually using an old HP computer that came from an office. Has Windows 7 on it, hasn't been turned on in 3 or 4 years. So this is perfect for our purposes today and to get this little server up and running. And like I mentioned, since we're going to be wiping this computer, make sure that any data, old family photos, family videos, important documents or anything that you want to keep are saved and moved somewhere else on your main computer. Just make sure that any data that you do want to keep is secure somewhere else. The second requirement is that you're going to need a USB thumb drive, minimum of 2 gigabytes. You can use something bigger, but make sure it's at least 2 gigabytes. And like before, make sure that any data you want to keep is moved off of it. So with that out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. And so the first step is to download the Lubuntu image. So the first thing we're going to do is find and download the operating system image. And to do that, we're going to go ahead and type in Lubuntu on just a Google search. And it should be pretty much the first result. It should be lubuntu.me, and links will be in the description. But when you get here, you'll find a website that looks like this. Take some time if you want and look through their website. I do recommend looking through it so you'll learn a bit more about this operating system. But what you need to know at this moment is that this is a very lightweight Linux distribution. It's based on Ubuntu, and it's actually an official flavor listed on their website. So this means that you get the same solid base and the same software repository, but with a much lighter desktop environment. That desktop environment being the LXQT desktop instead of GNOME 3. I'll possibly go deeper into what this all means in another video, but the main takeaway for you is that this is going to give you the best performance possible on older devices and let you squeeze every ounce of computing power for your game server. For example, if you take something like Windows, right, where we don't really have anything up and running, but we have 4.5 gigabytes of memory used, and the CPU is kind of jumping around a bit, again, not really doing anything. So you can see that Windows is a very resource-intensive operating system, that if you try installing an old device, there's not going to be a lot of resources left for the game server that you're going to be running. So this is where Linux really shines, is where Lubuntu really shines in letting you squeeze all that performance out of that old device. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and click on Get Lubuntu. And it's going to give us a couple options, version 21.10 and 20.04. Now, the version we want is 20.04 because it has the LTS attached to it. And what LTS stands for is long-term support, which means it's going to get years of updates and security patches versus the other version, which are more incremental updates, which have newer software and some newer features, but they don't get supported as long. And actually, if we scroll down, we can actually see what that looks like. Where right here is 20.04 long-term support, and you can see that it's going to get some pretty heavy support well into 2025, versus 2110, which is the support's going to end sometime this year, that year being 2022. And if you're watching this in the future and 22.04 LTS is out, that's a safe bet to go ahead and download that. But just the important thing is just to make sure to download the LTS version, because you don't want to be switching your operating system and dealing with all these updates, every 6 months or so. You want to make sure you just install the operating system once, and it's good for some years, which 20.04 is going to be. So what we're going to be doing is just download desktop 64-bit, and while that's downloading, we're going to go ahead and open up a new tab, and we're going to type in Etcher. And again, links will be in the bottom, but we're going to find Balena Etcher. And this is the software we're going to use to install the image on our thumb drive to be able to boot from it. So once we get here, you just click download for Windows. Okay, so now that both of these are done, what we're going to be doing is installing Balena Etcher. So we're going to go ahead and find where we download these files, double click the Balena Etcher setup, and it's going to give you a little license. Go ahead and read and accept on your own terms. And while that's installing, that's pretty much it. Then it's installed. And it's going to give you a little menu like this. And from this menu, what we're going to be doing is we're going to click on Flash from File. We're going to find that one that we just downloaded. Then we're going to select our target. In this case, we were using a SanDisk USB, and we're going to go ahead and click that. And it's very important that you make sure that it's the correct device and that it's the correct USB thumb drive that you're selecting. It automatically hides the other system drives, but you don't want to be clicking one of these, because these are actually for your computer and where your computer operating system is. So you definitely don't want to click any of these, or you'll risk installing this over your computer. So make sure that it's the USB drive, and then you're going to hit select. And then once these two things are correct, you hit flash, and then it's going to give you a prompt. We're going to go ahead and hit yes. And then it's going to go ahead and flash the image to the thumb drive. This may take some time depending on your computer, depending on your write speed. So we're just going to go ahead and let that finish. Alright, so while that's finishing up, right now it's validating, we're actually going to go back to Lubuntu and go back to the site. And we're going to click on manual up here. And this is important to keep around and for you to actually bookmark it, because it's going to help you a lot as far as figuring out your system that you're going to be installing. All right, in this case, we're going to go ahead to chapter 1.2, booting the image, which is what we're going to be doing next. And this is just a good reference to keep up while you're working on the other computer, because this will actually walk you through how to install and how to do a lot of this stuff. In this case, we're just going to go here. You can read through this. These are separate. These are other tools you can use other than Etcher. I happen to like Etcher, but feel free to use one of these. These work for you. So it looks like Etcher's done. So once it's done, you'll get this message that the flash is complete, and it asks you if you want to flash another. In this case, we don't. And that's pretty much it on this computer. Now we're going to move on to setting up on the other computer. Okay, so for this next step, we're going to go to the computer we're going to use. And again, this is not the computer that you play on. This is the one we're going to be installing the server on. And stick that thumb drive that you just flashed into one of the available USB drives, and we're going to turn it on. But when we turn it on, there's going to be a message that flashes on the screen that's going to tell you to press a specific key to get into the boot menu or the BIOS menu. This varies computer to computer. For some computers, it's the escape key. For some, it's the F2 key or the F8, F12. You just kind of have to see which one it is for your computer. It goes by really quick. If you start seeing the Windows logo or it boot into the regular operating system, that means you've gone too far and you should just go ahead and restart it and try again. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. And then we're going to watch this side of the screen to see which one it is. All right, see, in that case, it went by real quick, but we saw that it was F9 for the boot menu. So I went and just turned it off again, turn it back on. And then while it's booting up, I'm just going to keep pressing F9 on my keyboard to make sure I don't miss that window. Because again, it goes by really quick. So you want to make sure you hit it. If you hit it, so once we hit it, we'll see a menu like this telling you which one you want to use. In this case, you want to use the USB device. So we'll hit enter on the USB device. And then we will see a menu that looks like this. Go ahead and hit the language that you're most comfortable in. In this case, I'm going to do English. And we'll see this screen, Lubuntu, we'll see the logo, and we'll see a couple options. We're just going to go ahead and hit the top one, just start Lubuntu. And that's going to start it in what is called a live session. And so what this means is that it's doing Lubuntu from the thumb drive you have hooked up to it instead of any hard drive operating system on it. So while we're doing this, you're going to check the disks. Just make sure that everything got installed on the thumb drive correctly. And we're just going to go ahead and let this finish. All right, so now that this is getting towards the end, once you get to the end, it should say check finish, no errors found. Hopefully it says that. If it doesn't, then go ahead and try the Etcher process again and try flashing the image again. Now you may see some stuff like this pop up. Most of it's pretty safe to ignore unless it ends up hanging on one of those screens for a while. But pretty soon you'll see the desktop environment with a nice little logo, and we'll proceed from here. Okay, so once it boots into this nice wallpaper, this is called the live session, and it basically lets you test drive the operating system before you use it. So you can go ahead and poke around here if you want. When you're ready, just go ahead and double click on this desktop icon that says install Lubuntu. And that's going to open up the installer. Now it's just checking a couple things before it goes. But then when you see the welcome to the next universe, and you'll see this kind of splash screen, it'll walk you through installing. First thing we're going to do is check our language. In this case, we're going to do American English, and we'll hit next. Then choose your time zone. In this case, this happens to be correct. Choose your keyboard setting. Again, default is fine for me. And then we get to this first important part, which is the partitions. Now, again, I mentioned that you should delete everything, or you should move everything you want off this computer before you proceed. There are ways of installing Linux alongside Windows, but that's really beyond the scope of this video. If you want to look at options for doing that, you can go ahead and search for the term dual booting or installing Linux alongside Windows, and it'll actually show you how to do that. But again, this is beyond the scope of this video. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and hit erase disk. And again, it's going to tell you that's going to delete all the data currently present on the selected storage device, which is fine for our purposes. If there happens to be multiple hard drives, just make sure you select the correct one. You can leave everything, all the other options as fine as how it is. We'll hit next, and it's going to ask you for a couple information just to set up your computer. In this case, we're going to go ahead and hit Linux dude. just gonna hit Linux dude here. What's the name of this computer? We'll just do home server, and it's gonna choose you to have you choose the password. Once you do all that, you can go ahead and hit login automatically asking for a password if you want, assuming your home is a safe place and no one's going to mess around with it. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that unchecked for now because I want to require a password when accessing this computer. And we'll hit next. And this is just an overview of all the stuff you selected. Again, up until this point, nothing has happened and the data on the hard drive is still safe. Once you hit this install, it's going to go ahead and proceed. But again, it's just making sure that you know that it's going to take everything on this drive and erase whatever's on it and install Ubuntu over the whole thing, which again is fine for my purposes. So then I'll hit install, and it's going to confirm with you that you're about to make changes to your disk, and you're not going to be able to undo these changes. Go ahead and install now. And then it's going to be installing it on that partition while showing you a few screens of the operating system. You can go ahead and just look at these and just kind of look through them as it's walking you a bit and giving you a little bit of an introduction to this operating system. Okay, so now that Ubuntu has been installed on the computer, it's going to say that you can now restart your computer or continue using the Lubuntu live environment. Just go ahead and click restart now and then restart the computer, and the next time it's boots up, you'll actually be booting up straight into Linux, into the actual distribution installed on your desktop. Okay, so once we end up on this screen, you will probably see a message here saying that you need to update some software. If you don't see that message, go ahead and hit this little icon, type in discover, and this is the way you get applications and programs on Linux. The important part is going to be this part down here where it'll say how many updates are available for your system. In this case, I've done this off screen so I can get set up for recording, but you will probably have quite a few here. Just go ahead and hit update and let those finish before proceeding. Once that's done, we will go ahead and open up Firefox. And when we get here, we're going to go ahead and type in the path of Titan's server. And it should be pretty close here, right here. So unfortunately, you might see an ad. Just go ahead and find the AlderonGames.com and pot server hosting, which will take us to their hosting site and information about their hosting. We'll go down here below their service providers to where it says experience users, download server files. So we'll go ahead and click on this. Once we get here, we'll get to the wiki, which is a great tool and a great resource to have. In fact, you want to make sure to actually bookmark it. They're updating it pretty frequently. For example, Jiggy edited this page 4 days ago, and it's had 9 revisions since they released it. So they're constantly working on it. There's a lot of stuff that might be some edge use cases where you might have to figure it out on your own a little bit. And for that, I would say to go ahead and make sure you join the Path of Titans Discord server and assign yourself the server role, so you can chat with other people, ask questions, see how other people figure things out. So we'll go ahead and scroll down to where it says set up your server tutorial, and you'll see that the first line says if you're hosting your server on your own hardware, start here. So go ahead and click on that. That's going to take us to this page, hosting your own hardware. And again, by hosting their servers, you're agreeing to their hosting agreement, which can be found here for you to read. And then we'll see down here it says AlderonGamesCMD can be downloaded for Windows, Mac, and Linux here. So we'll go ahead and just click the Linux one. And that's going to go ahead and save it. And give that a minute. Once it's downloaded, I'll just go ahead and open the folder, and it'll be my downloads. And I really suggest creating a new folder for all this, because we're going to have quite a few files and things, and we don't want to get them mixed up with other downloads you might have in the future. So we'll just go ahead and say hot server, and we'll just move that file in there. Now we have this here. Now the next thing we want to do is actually right click this and go to create new, and then click on blank file and just name this notes. Because there's going to be quite a few things you're going to have to keep track of, and this will just make it easier to keep track of all that stuff. Then we'll go back to this page, and the first thing you'll see is that it mentions an auth token, or server authentication. Now you can use your username and password, but this is really the better way to do it. So you'll go ahead and just click this. I'll go ahead and right click it and open a new tab. It's going to ask you to sign in. So once you sign in, it'll say by generating a new token or revoke any previously generated hosting tokens, and that's okay. So go ahead and click this. It's going to spit out this long string at you. We'll click this little clipboard sign. That's going to copy it to our clipboard. We'll go back over here to notes, and we're just going to paste that here, and we'll keep that for later. We'll go down a couple lines. Then we can go back over here. We can skip this part about the beta branch. If you happen to be wanting to use the public test branch, you can do that. There's some other stuff you got to do to get that set up and running, which we don't really need right now. But the next part is the server GUIDs, or global unique identifier. Every pathfinder needs a unique identifier. So we'll go ahead and just click on this. Again, open a new tab. And it's going to spit out this long string at you again. So we'll go ahead and grab this, copy that, and then we'll paste it here. We can kind of skip almost this, except for this. We'll need the server list IP. We'll go ahead and copy this. Put that in our notes as well. And then what you're going to have to do is actually go to Google and type in myIPv4. And you'll click on this, and it's going to give you a number here. So this is a number that we're going to need. Make sure it says IPv4. You will see 4 double-digit numbers separated by dots, so we'll go ahead and just paste that there. Then we can close this and go back to this page. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to scroll down to where it says Linux server setup. And as of today's video, or today's recording, the documentation is still a work in progress. But we're going to basically create this update shell script. So we're going to come to our folder where we have our stuff. We're going to right click and go to create new blank file. We're going to do Update.sh, like they want us to name it over here. Click OK, and then we're going to open that up, and it's going to open up over here. So then we're going to come over here, and we're just going to click this little clipboard to make sure we copy everything. Just going to paste all this, and then right here where it says username, go ahead and type in your own username, and then where it says AG server pass, you're going to go ahead and type in your own password. Okay, so once you've typed in your password, everything else you can leave pretty much the same, except for this first part, because ours is called AlderonGamesCMD Linux. We just got to make sure we tell it that we're on Linux. So we'll do dot or dash, and then just type in Linux, and then leave that as is. We'll go ahead and hit save for that. We're going to come over here to our folder again. I'm going to right click that file we just made, go to properties, and then click on the permissions tab, and then we're going to click on make the file executable and click OK. And now we want to do that to this file as well. So we're going to right click it, go to properties, click on the permissions tab, check that box, then click OK. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to go ahead and click on tool, go to open terminal, and this little part can feel almost like you're in the Matrix, right? Basically, this just tells you who you are, what computer you're on and where you are. So for example, it's telling us we're in the downloads pot server, and we can see that we are in the downloads pot server. So while we're here, in fact, if we type in ls to list all the files, we can see the same 3 files that we have over here. So now that that's done, go ahead and hit ./update.sh and hit enter. And as you can see, it's going through, and this is actually downloading the server files that we need. We can see over here that it's created a couple files. It's created a folder. It's got this new file, and this file. So we're just going to let this go for a little bit. You can take some time. It's a pretty big file. So we're going to go ahead and just let that run. Okay, so when that's finished, and you'll know it's finished because, well, first of all, it tells you, but if you see this little message again, that means it's working. If you ever don't see this, that means it's currently doing something, so you don't want to close out of the window. But with that being done, now we can see that there's quite a few files here. And the first thing we're actually going to do is right-click this one and do the same thing before. Properties, permissions. Okay, so it is executable. And we're just going to go ahead and run that. So we're going to do ./path of Titans server.sh, do enter. What this is going to do is it's going to try to run the server at first, but there's going to be some stuff that's not going to work, first of all, because you don't have it configured correctly yet. But we need to do this so that it creates a couple extra folders that it doesn't create when it downloads. These folders and files are created when the servers run for the first time. So you want to just make sure we just get it running a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and close out of it. Okay, so now it's hanging here. We'll go ahead and now hit Control-C to cancel what we're doing. And you can see that it starts showing that we're canceling and everything. So we'll go ahead and close out all of that. Now we can come over here, and we'll go ahead and click on Path and Titans. And we want to go to Saved, Config, Linux Server, and we'll see all these files. These are the files that we needed it to create. We'll go back to the wiki, and now we can go over here to Home. And scroll back down, and now that we have installed the Path of Titans server software, now we can go ahead and go to step 1, which is configure your server. So the first thing we're going to do is go to server configuration options, and we'll see quite a lot of options here that you can do to control your server. A lot of this is beyond the scope of this video, so we're not going to deal with this right now. But we do want to at least get it to show up on the list, and I'm going to show you that. We're going to come down here where it says iGame Sessions Options, and we'll go ahead and copy this header, and we'll come back over here and we'll find the Game.ini file. So copy this, open this, and we'll go ahead and paste that header. We'll go to a new line, we'll go to server name, and copy this. Fix that on there, and we'll just call that Linux dude. We'll go to server password, and that password's fine enough for now. Obviously, you should change it to something secure for your own server, something that's not going to be easy to guess if you don't want people. But this is pretty much what we're going to do for now. Like I mentioned, you can look through here as to what the different commands are and what they do. And there's quite a lot you can do with your server right in this file. And for example, you can set the server starting time, and if you scroll all the way down, it actually gives you example content, right? So you can actually copy all this and then tweak this to your specifications. But we don't need all that right now, so we're just going to go ahead and save. Then we'll go back here and go to Home. Oh, and one last thing. So now that we've got those We'll go back here to home, and now that we have that Game.ini file set up, we'll go ahead and click back over here and scroll all the way down. And since this documentation is work in progress, hopefully by the time you're watching this, there's a Linux section here. But for now, we're going to actually take the Windows Server Setup one and tweak it to what we need it to. So we'll go here where it says starting a server after updating. Go ahead and copy this, and we will open up our notes again. And we'll go down a couple lines, and we'll paste that here. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is it's going to be looking for this in this file path. So what we want to do is come over here and see what it looks like for us. So we got Path of Titans, binaries, we have that. And then instead of Win64, we have Linux. So we're going to change this to just say Linux. And then we'll go here. And we'll see that it says Path of Titans server Linux shipping. So we just need to actually change this to match this. So we'll go ahead and just click rename, copy, and then we will highlight this whole part and just paste over that. The port, for now I'm going to leave default. You should think about switching the ports from the default to something that's not being used. It just adds one more layer of security with it not being the default. We'll leave the branch key demo the same. And then for username and password, we're actually going to just delete this and change it to up here where it says server auth token. We're actually going to grab this little bit, copy that, come back to your notes, and we're going to paste it right here. Then we're going to grab the authorization token that we made earlier. We're going to copy all that, and we're going to paste that here. What this is an authentication token for your account. This is as good as typing in your email and password, right? So you don't have to type in your email and password. You have this big secure number, which, by the way, has been changed since recording this video. So, you know, don't use this. But this is as good as typing in your password, and it's more secure. So now we have this auth token as part of that. And then where it says server GUID, we're going to go ahead and delete all this. We're going to grab that GUID we got earlier. We're going to copy this. And we're going to paste it at the end of this. Alright, perfect. Then we're going to hit, at the end of the database local, we're going to hit space. And then we're going to copy the server list IP we got from earlier as well. We're going to copy all that. And we're going to paste it right here. And that is it. Now we're going to hit save. And now we're going to go ahead and grab this whole thing. We're going to hit copy. Then we come over here to our window, and we're just going to hit right click, paste clipboard. And now we would go ahead and hit enter, and that's going to run our server with quite a few of these what's called command line arguments, telling the server what we want to use, such as the port, the authentication token, the server GUID, and the IP and everything. So once this is all pasted in, we're going to hit enter, and now it's going to go ahead and run. So while this is running, we're actually going to be switching to our other computer and checking out how to find our server on Path of Titans. Hey everybody, so now we're going to come and open up Path of Titans on our main computer. When that opens up, we're just going to go to Community Servers, wait for this to load, and then we can go ahead and type in our server name. So in this case, we're just going to do Linux, and refresh, and there we can see our server. and we see the little key, meaning we have a password. So now we can go ahead and confirm, and then password, enter. And we can see we've actually entered our server now. And there we have it. So that is how you create a Path of Titan server on a spare computer you may have on, you know, scattering dust in the garage or wherever. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll try to answer what I can. Yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good day.